today, I'm extremely lucky to talk to Nikki Shimwell. Nikki is the Detective Superintendent, Head of Serious and Organised Crime with South Yorkshire Police, and she's been working in the police force for 25 years with a focus on modern slavery for the last 8 years. So Nikki really knows this topic in depth and on the ground. So Nikki, perhaps we could start by you telling us about your role and your experiences so far.
I'm the lead for serious and organised criminality in South Yorkshire Police. I've worked in the area of modern slavery since 2017, and now I manage the modern slavery team, and I'm also the regional chair of the modern slavery threat group. Modern slavery, it's all around us, often hidden in plain sight, and it can be in those everyday services such as hand car washers, nail bars and massage parlours being run as brothels, or pop-up brothels in residential premises where sexual exploitation is often prevalent. However, we do also see forced labour in the construction or care industry, and people obviously can become enslaved making our clothes, serving our food, picking our crops, working in our factories, or working in houses as cooks, cleaners or nannies. And those victims of modern slavery might face violence or threats, be forced into inescapable debt, or have their passports taken away and face being threatened with deportation. Many people have fallen into this because they were trying to escape poverty or insecurity and improve their lives and support their families, and now they're in a situation that they can't leave. What we know as well is that complex supply chains that businesses have might make it harder for them to spot exploitation and abuse in their supply chains. And in many cases, they can even hide behind that complexity to evade responsibility. Forced labour is actually the second most common form of modern slavery in the UK. Since October 2019, about 16,500 people have been referred to the Home Office, and they are reporting forced labour. But actually, we think we're only scratching the surface. We estimate that there's approximately 130,000 victims of modern slavery at any one time in the UK.
And you've talked about the moment where you might start engaging with people who are victims of modern slavery. Take us through that journey to maybe the point where you're able to take action.
Nationally, we have the National Referral Mechanism, the NRM, which is the UK's system for identifying and protecting victims of modern slavery. Under the NRM, a small number of charities and public bodies, such as the police or Border Force or the Home Office, can refer someone in to receive support. So that is a great system to be able to wrap around somebody that's experiencing exploitation and provide them with that support around housing, medical assistance, legal assistance, financial assistance, whatever they might need. And we are linked in with these other charities and public bodies, and we tend to do that on a sort of a partnership level. So if we, for example, identify there's somewhere where we think there might be someone in a situation of exploitation, we will, as a group, get together and plan for an operation in relation to that. What's really important, obviously, is that we speak to these people who we suspect are being exploited away from the people that we think might be perpetrators. Because so we do run reception centres where we can take people to enable them to feel comfortable to be able to talk to us and support them through that sort of disclosure journey. We often gather intelligence relating to organised criminality, where we've got it on a larger scale. And this can be the dangerous routes that are coming into the country, and the people that are exploiting those people to make use of those dangerous routes. Often will exploit the people who are using those services once they arrive here as well. Recent changes in 2023, which were essentially put in place to curb illegal migration, has really impacted on victims of modern slavery, because that new legislation requires victims to present a greater proof of exploitation to qualify for support. So actually, rejections of slavery cases have risen since that has come in place. I think in 2022, there were about 11% were rejected. However, that rose to 45% in 2023, which creates such a challenge for somebody that has actually been exploited, and then the sort of requirement to prove that, to try and show that they are a victim and therefore entitled to that support.
If you could wave a magic wand and change something about the structure of that process, what might that be?
Yeah, What's really difficult is the resources that are required, because
Yeah.
often it might be that to ensure that we can have a successful prosecution, we might need to engage greater capabilities than are always available to us. We've had to sort of employ covert tactics and things like that to be able to gather the evidence. And the availability of that, the cost of that, and putting that all together to be able to carry out that investigation is quite a challenge, because we're always balancing so many risks. We're really lucky in South Yorkshire. We've got great support, both from a force level and from our partners that are engaged in this. We've got a really good and robust response to it. But it is a focus of policing that, we know that we always need to do more in this area.
In terms of how the landscape is changing, where are you seeing risks emerging?
There's less desire from European countries to come to the UK. We are noticing that they're coming from Africa, Vietnam, China, and places like that. We're seeing more exploitation in the care industry. We're also seeing an increase in people working as nannies, as cleaners, married to somebody in the UK, and then they are put into a situation of domestic servitude, which again is very hidden.
What would you like to see from UK businesses in particular to address the risks of modern slavery and forced labour in their supply chains, but particularly in the UK?
Under Section 54 of the Modern Slavery Act, organisations in scope of that have a duty to publish a modern slavery statement. But actually, how do we get down to ground level and really understand whether there is any forced labour in our supply chains? And that's the key, really. It's really important to do that due diligence and the risk assessments and make sure that you've got the policies and things that show the transparency around that. But actually, the real work can be done by knowing your operations and knowing your staff. If you rely on what supervisors are telling you about people having the right to work and the right checks and balances have been done, then I don't think you can actually be reassured, because you need to do that checking with the staff and talk to the staff. We do lots of raising awareness around spotting the signs of modern slavery. And there are lots of ways that you can do that, asking questions and, do those people have access to their own passports? Do they get paid into their own bank account? Is there accommodation linked to their work? Because that's often something that we find, that people will be all living in one premises together, but do they have that freedom about where they live? So really knowing that is key to identifying whether you might have forced labour in your supply chain. There's been some updated guidance published in March this year, which helps businesses to identify that within their supply chains. It comes on 2 levels, so that the companies that are new to that can access the recommendations and things on a level 1, and those more seasoned companies get more detailed and in-depth recommendations on a level 2. Trying to educate yourself about how to spot those signs is really important. And if you do think you have identified something, it's really important to have the confidence to report that. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. We welcome people ringing us for advice, and us making those necessary checks and doing the work that we need to do to reassure ourselves that everything is okay. And there are different ways you can do that. You can report to the police. You can report to the Modern Slavery Helpline online. You can report to the GLAA. There's lots of advice that you can take. Think about the type of work that you're engaged in. Think about the processes that your workers are engaged in. Do those interviews, have those conversations, and do those checks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.